So, our speaker today is Rebecca Hamm, and I will read you an introduction about the fabulous Rebecca. Rebecca Hamm was introduced to the artists who experienced different abilities and were working with First Street Gallery and the progressive studios of the Tierra del Sol Foundation. She joined in 30 years ago as a guest artist, and now as director of arts, she leads the progressive studio programs with ambitious exhibition schedules that highlight the important work of hundreds of artists who've been involved with the inclusive studios. Currently, Hamm's team of art professionals provides innovative and effective opportunities for more than 100 artists who are advancing their own professional careers in the arts. Tierra del Sol's studios are currently located in Upland and in Sunland. A Southern California native, Rebecca Hamm received her BA from California Polytechnic University, Pomona, and her MFA from Claremont Graduate University. She shows her artwork throughout the region, including recent solo and selected exhibitions at LA City College, the Claremont Museum of Art, the Ontario Museum of Art and History, the Huntington Beach Art Center, the Carnegie Art Museum in Oxnard, and the University of Houston, Texas. Hamm has taught a wide variety of fine art and design courses at 3 local universities. Her writings on creativity and inclusive arts have been published internationally, and she has been invited to speak for many groups and organizations, both locally and nationally. She was a featured presenter for a TEDx program and was honored by Senator Carol Liu as Woman of the Year for 2015 in the 25th Senatorial District of California. The current exhibition, Vanguard, Origins of Tierra del Sol Arts in Claremont featuring Helen Ray, is on view through April 11th at the Claremont Museum of Art. And there are cards on the table at the back there if you'd like to take one and visit the museum to see their work. This exhibition represents 15 artists whose remarkable creative expressions have influenced and enriched contemporary art in Southern California and beyond. So I will welcome Rebecca Hamm, and she will introduce you to her crew of artists who've come with her today. I will also say that my dad, who was a Claremont painter, loved Rebecca very much. So it's always a delight to me to have her around.
How do I say anything now? That means a lot to me, Beth. Thank you. What a treat to be here. And I grew up in Claremont, so what a joy to be in my stomping grounds. Since we moved to Upland a year and a half ago, my life changed enormously, not being in Claremont every day. So coming back is like even more special. And I just appreciate that you're all here for this. I've brought some willing artist speakers to join me today. You'll see them throughout the program, and I'll introduce them when they come up. And I'm going to get a tech tune-up here. Thank you, Jacob. So nice to have things that work so well. I taught for a lot of years when classrooms were turning into smart classrooms, and they were never as smart as they promised. So I always had to pack a big bag of gear to back it up, right? So enough of that. I am so grateful to be here, and I wanted to just share some of the things that we're doing because it's so exciting. Artists being artists is basically knockout. It's people who are allowed to find their self-expression and grow in exploring what that means by creating works is really an enormous benefit and gift to us all. To see through someone else's eyes, to enjoy a new perspective on life. That's what art making is all about. That's what really turns us on, to see how someone else has created a point of view for us to enjoy. So I wanted to just start out by saying, yes, the Vanguard show at the Claremont Museum is fantastic. So I'm going to do a quick little, okay, there we go. Okay, it's full of Helen Ray's gallery, and I'll talk about her at the end of this presentation a little more, and also the other 16 artists that are in the show are fantastic. But I wanted to say that we're part of the Tierra del Sol Foundation that started in 1971. And it was started to freely help people make choices for themselves and expand opportunities that weren't necessarily offered. Basic things that we enjoy were not necessarily given to all of our community members. So I wanted to bring a word to your mind called inclusivity. Think about inclusion, inclusivity. The word Integration has been used very often. I see that more as a word of injection and force. Inclusivity is you don't see anything. It's all natural. We're all here together. And there's no divisions or lines between us and thinking, oh, let's do this and be inclusive. No, inclusivity is really a positive word. There's no limitations built into it. We live in societies that are typically very deficit focused. That's just natural, you know, like what are you not doing and how do we fix it? How do you not measure up? As opposed to coming in and saying, what do you bring to the table? Where are you? What do you have going? And let's amplify from there. So it's when I talk about inclusivity and inclusion, I encourage you to think, maybe blow up some preconceived ideas and try some new words on. That's what keeps us growing as humanity. Long ago, there was a Tierra del Sol in Claremont that started 30 years ago, actually, and it has a rich, deep history. And the idea of collaborations, having guest artists, working with universities and arts organizations and other nonprofits has been exactly what we've been doing for 30 years. Here's a vintage picture from the Claremont Courier from our opening. And this was 1989. Actually, the opening ceremony was January of 1990. This is Barry Morrow. He is the writer and co-screenwriter for Rain Man. And he lived in Claremont at the time, and he was one of our champions. He helped us at the very early years to support us in doing fundraising with us. He worked with Kathy Perillo, the program director at the time, and Michael Woodcock, who was our artist in residence on a California Arts Council grant, who developed our first collaborative project, which was printmaking. And that's how I got introduced to the program. In the Vanguard show, on the left, you'll see this display of our first linoleum print program, where I would say 30, 40 guest artists came and collaborated with the 8 to 10 artists who were in the program to create a series of limited edition prints. All those little specks are not little bugs crawling on the wall. Those are actually chop marks in the tradition of Japanese printmaking, where each artist designed their own logo, so to speak, to stamp to the bottom of the hand braid print. And so we have that series still today, those chop blocks. Those are so good. Jose Del Rio was one of our first artists, the first of the 8 that joined us. And that is his print featured in the center. And this is Jose. He came to us, he had worked in his own home. And when we opened our doors, he came and had his first studio outside of his bedroom, which was just wonderful. So he joined a community of artists and found out what that was all about. And all of his work was very generous and offering to others. It was so I have many in my home that say, God bless you, Miss Becky. And and they look like he fashioned them after shopping bags. All of those are little handles of a shopping bag made out of cardboard. I love them. So you can imagine with all these artists coming in, we had to immediately start a very intensive exhibition program because of so many great pieces of work ready to show. It's not that we taught anyone to make art. We allowed a place for it to happen. And so when that started to go, we needed to frame it up and put it out there. We also had many guest artists at First Street, very many collaborations. And for example, this is an artist, Jane Brecker, who went through CGU and was one of our first teachers and is now professor of arts and art history at Loyola Marymount. She just recently moved back to Claremont. And she came in and created this wonderful project to collaborate with our artists. Christine Morla, also, she's a professor in Oxnard and the University of Channel Islands, and she came in, and as you see, the walls even change when we need to. Every artist brings their own point of view. It's never going to look like the next person. The shows are never going to look alike, and that's to be celebrated. So why can't we celebrate that as well with each person that we know? Each person's unique qualities are such a gift to us all. I wanted to tell a little bit about how we work. We are, Tierra del Sol, like I said, is almost 50 years old now, always providing services for folks with disabilities. And the arts programs has developed now for pretty much 30 years. I wanted to say the arts program focuses on a career in the arts platform. We have artists who are developing exhibition careers by being artists showing work and selling work. We have artists who are being art educators by teaching and leading classes. And we have art entrepreneurs who are running their own arts businesses and learning how to curate shows, how to be designers, how to do special services in the arts. Now, any artists in the room? Don't you know that your life is pretty much a patchwork of events to make a living? Sometimes it's that way. So we, because all of our staff are artists, it's very easy for us to think about how we can make an artistic pursuit for each individual's path. I'm not going to read this history. Don't worry about it. But then I just wanted to say that in 1971, there were about 8 families who had sons and daughters who were slated to go into institutions, to be pulled out of the family home and put in an institution for the rest of their lives. This is 1971. So these 8 families said, no, we're going to continue a community for our sons and daughters to have a rich life, living at home, being with families, not set up, not put away, literally, and they forged ahead. They didn't know how to do it, but they did it. And those 8 families are the ones that created significant change for so many others. Currently, I just want to say we serve actually over 750 individuals in our arts, in our Tierra programs. Our arts program is actually the smallest of that. We now actually don't have 70, we have 100 people that we serve. So the 3 areas that we have in our agency, and I won't talk about the program very much more. I just want to give you a little foundation here. We work in what's called workforce development. Let's say someone's coming to us and saying, I want to explore my dream job, but I don't know what jobs are out there because no one's given me that opportunity to explore. So we help people with those kinds of experiences and choice making and skill building. The college to career program allows folks to actually maintain and take college classes and earn their degrees on the road to their chosen job. And also the careers in the arts, as I mentioned before, learning how to teach art, how to make art, how to be an entrepreneur. All of those things are what we get to do under the roof at Upland over there and in Sunland. And it's so much fun because it changes every day. And all the artists are telling us what is needed to be done. We work hard to follow as fast as we can for each of the individuals who are incredibly creative artists and expressive, and they need just a few bridges to be built for them. So we collaborate with them to build those bridges. What a great job, huh? This is so much fun. So we also are a mission-driven agency. We have a core mission about inclusivity and valuing and working with our communities in a way that is not about serving somebody else. It's about all of us. It's all of us thinking about how do we uplift each other and value each other in our communities. The Career in the Arts programs also has its own art-driven mission, and we make all of our choices based on those core values. And that unifies our agency, which has grown to be very big in 30 years. When I started, we had like a handful of art staff. Now we have a handful of art staff, but a lot of artists, because we're a nonprofit and we don't necessarily pad the top end at all. Yeah, well, okay. We recently, this last summer, opened the Tierra del Sol Gallery in Chinatown. So we had the First Street Gallery for 29 years. We were coming up on our 30th year, and that's when we made the switch to have a larger platform, a more expansive platform for artists in LA. I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, so now at the studios. We have 2 studios, about 50 to 60 artists each studio, working with art mentors for their individual career paths. In the Sunland Studios, we have a very beautiful fiber arts program. People are weaving, doing tapestries, doing sewing and stitching, designing fashion, as well as the painting, drawing, and ceramics programs there. A collaborative studio experience includes wonderful ways to expand all kinds of skills, both in media practices, studio management, portfolio development, group critique skills, leading tours, developing ideas, and building a creative community. Again, more images of our studios. Our artists develop their own methods of self-expression. Our mentors are, if you want to think of art instructors, our mentors actually are the support system, creating bridges, helping people make choices, as opposed to this is how you do this, this is how you do this. It's all about supporting someone to become the artist of their choice. And it's about each person exploring their materials and finding what fits best for them. These artists also know how to be good self-advocates and also self-promoters. So if you were to come visit, a few of our artists might invite you to see their work from their own perspective, tour you around, and then of course they're gonna give you that nice little pitch to walk home with one of their pieces. Just go over to Lauren and buy it. They've got it down. But man, if an artist doesn't have a little bit of that skill, they gotta pay somebody big time to do that, right? Okay, our art educators. Being an artist making work, selling work, an art educator is someone who's very interested in designing lesson plans and getting these messages out to the larger community of how they can explore their creativity as well. We do quite a bit of public workshops. You can come and take workshops with us. They happen in our studios. We take them on the road. We're constantly in demand for teaching all kinds of art classes and workshops. And we create a very positive atmosphere for this. So if any of you are considering it, it is an experimental laboratory like any art studio should be. It shouldn't be like a rigid, I got to achieve this. It's about exploring and finding out what's next because you deepen yourself in your own art practice. We also have people who have taught outside of the studios. We were very involved with the CLASP program here in Claremont, the after-school programs, where our artists worked with students at the elementary or junior highs and elementary schools after school. And this is one where we had classes at Blaisdell. And you can see us presenting. That's actually Katie and Bill, who you'll hear from in a few minutes. But again, we can take these things on the road. Anything that we have an idea for, we can create lesson plans for and develop wonderful structures to teach anywhere. And we did wonderful series at the Jocelyn Center. I hope to regain that program again. We've been in such a flurry since we moved, and that was just a year and a half ago, and I was just getting on my feet from that. So that, and then the gallery changed. So we had a lovely series of classes that we taught: ceramics, collage, painting, drawing, you name it, printmaking, all kinds of things. And also our most popular workshops lately have been the zine workshops, which are magazine workshops where people make original hand-drawn zines and they can be reproduced if you like, but it's such an enjoyable experience. And Katie and Jackie created the zine workshops with their mentor Laura, and all of the pieces to it were well thought out and designed. We just actually last Friday had the Claremont High Art Starters. What do we have, 40 or 50 high schoolers running around the studios? And we gave them tours and they all did zine workshops with us. It was great. Another aspect to what we do is community volunteering. Over the years, we have always made a point of giving back. And becoming a community member is to volunteer and share with others, not even just through teaching, but to literally get hands-on and support other nonprofits in our community. Can you imagine many of the folks that we have worked with have not even offered that opportunity? How much do you gain by being a volunteer? How wonderful is that when you go home for the day and like, wow, I really gave of myself. What a great thing that everyone can participate in that kind of activity. And we also have artists who are becoming entrepreneurs. These are a couple of our artists at a craft fair, and they did a killing on sales. This is Victor, who loves to do portraiture, and he sets himself up to get those portraits done. Joe Zaldivar often gets many commissions. This is one that he did for Vom Fass. Anybody familiar with Vom Fass here in Claremont? And it's just a gorgeous piece you can see in their store. There's one in Suncrest too. So I'm going to quickly go through some of the shows that we've had. We're not only showing in our gallery in the studios or in the gallery downtown, but we do a lot of corporate installations. People call us up and say, I've got a new business on the second floor. Can you come fill it up with art and design it for us? So we do art services. And it's a wonderful way for our artists to expand and be presented to larger audiences and the opportunity for sales. And we've had shows all over the place. I won't go into all this. Guest artist opportunities. We have always had collaborative guest opportunities for our artists. This is one with Charles Long, professor at UC Riverside, who worked with us for actually 2.5, 3 years to collaborate with each of our artists on individual projects. And we had a spectacular show where all of our artists, a good collaboration isn't where someone comes in and teaches and you do something together, or this person teaches. It's not a push and pull. It's people coming together and coming out with something even grander. Something else has happened. There's an alchemy that happens. It's kind of magical. So we always bring in guest artists. We go to a guest artist. We've become guest artists. It's just a rich way to do. And we also have, I'm going through our checklist of all the things that kind of a massive introduction to things we do. Lots of college classes, lots of university classes, lots of organizations come for tours. And this is one where we had the UC Riverside students come and have a lecture. Now what we have is our artists themselves leading the tours for all the guests that come, and it's just dynamic. This is another guest artist, Ramak Fazel, who lives in Claremont part-time. He's an internationally known artist, and he worked on quite a few projects with us. This is one where he collaborated with Joe on maps, and that show culminated in an exhibition in Switzerland where Joe was featured in a beautiful exhibition in an architectural design firm. And at the opening, if you see on the right here, it was live broadcast. So while the opening reception was happening in Switzerland live, we were feeding internet video while Joe was working and responding to questions in Switzerland from Claremont. So it was just exciting, And of course, those are Joe's maps. They're just incredible. That was the presentation of his maps at Pitzer for a show a few years back. Another project Ramak did with us was a photo safari, and our artists created images that ended up in a show at Suncrest. So you might have seen the show and not even known it. The Felt Project with Lisa Ann Auerbach, who's a professor at Pomona College, was about, it ended up at the Chan Gallery, but it was all about using felt as a medium. Instead of paint or pencils, felt as a colorful medium. And she came to our studios, and what she did is she introduced the materials and how she works to inspire the artists to take it to wherever they wanted to take it. And it turned out to be just an amazing, amazing show. This is another one that based itself on sound and the response of visual and sound with each other. Tom Skelly, who just recently was here visiting for the Treasury of Claremont Music event. He's a musician. He's been a longtime K-Space DJ, another local guy. And Richard Bruland, who's from LA, who works with Loyola Marymount, but is very much into sound. They created a show about self-taught musicians, and our artists responded to all these different recordings by making visual pieces. And the show was just beautiful. We had a lecture series and panel discussions, all these great things. This is Evan Hines, who worked for a year very seriously and intensely. Oh my gosh, we heard from his parents that it disrupted his whole life to learn how to be a curator. And he curated a show called Infamous that was presented after a year of study. He designed it. He reached out to artists not only in the studios, but in LA. He coordinated the whole show. He wrote the didactics. He created an interactive walkthrough that you had when you were seeing the show, et cetera, et cetera. And he gave tours and lectures after that. He's an amazing guy. And he just recently had his solo show at the Tierra del Sol Gallery last summer as well. But curation is another skill and advent of an arts career. This is Doug Allen on the left, and he was invited to co-curate a show for the launch of the Special Olympic World Games that were here in LA in 2015. So he curated a show that was mounted at the Bridge Gallery in Los Angeles. He gave a speech to the city leaders when the reception happened, and he was interviewed on Channel 5 News. This was a show we recently had, well, a couple years ago at the Ontario Airport as well. So every and any place is an opportunity to show work for an artist, right? We had a lovely show at the Laverne College of Law wherein Victor got in there and, you know, he was hawking his portraits. Come on, I'll draw you. He really sells out when that happens because they are fabulous, by the way. We had our last show at the First Street Gallery after it moved to 2nd Avenue just last July, because that's when we had the crossover of the new gallery in LA opening and the closure of First Street in our neck of the woods, because we're a nonprofit, we don't have a budget to do any of this. By the way, all the stuff you've seen has been on a nonprofit shoestring budget. And our artists actually gain the proceeds of all the sales of their work. It's their career that we're building. It's not ours, it's theirs. And whatever we can do to help promote and expand that opportunity is what we do. So this show was our big last hurrah, and it really fell into almost the 30th year of First Street operating as a gallery. So it was very exciting to have that. What was really nice is then the Claremont Museum invited us to have the Vanguard show. We've often showed at the Bridge Gallery. Again, we're expanding the careers opportunities for our artists, and they're award winners, they're educators, they're exhibiting artists, they're tour leaders, they're docents for the gallery. This is all inclusivity. This isn't about a special setup for somebody. These are, challenge. Everyone is rising up and beyond the challenge, exceeding expectations. I often think that society has a limitation of what we think and expect from others. And what I encourage us all to do is just kind of blow that up and say, be in the moment. Very Zen, right? Be in the moment and really see what's there. A show we had at Nickelodeon, because, Nickelodeon are full of designers and they appreciate our artists' hard work. So we were invited to have exhibitions there. Currently, we have a show at Kenneth Hall of Administration in downtown LA. They invited us to redress their entire 8th floor, and we're gonna have a big reception for that, including a board meeting for the city council leaders in Los Angeles. So, you said no politics. Well, it isn't politics, it's humanity, right? We're making a mark everywhere. We have a tile show every year. You can come and make tiles with us. Last show at Sunland included a fashion show. Knockout, don't miss it. It's crazy good stuff. We do a lot of events. In fact, if you have things you'd like to do at our studio spaces, we would love to collaborate with you. We worked with the MoCA and the Daw Center for the Arts to do a series of 7x7 events where 7 creative people spoke for 7 minutes each. Oh, what fun was that? It was just like a great program. All kinds of people that you wouldn't even imagine coming together. And many shows that we do with universities. I'd like to build that program back up a little bit since we moved. We had a beautiful show at the Good Luck Gallery that is now the Tierra del Sol Gallery a few summers ago. And we had a 5-year relationship with that gallery as it was operating. And then we were able to move into working with them to become our gallery, which is something I'll speak about later. At this time, I want to introduce how we have some of our artists as teachers, and we were invited to LACMA. I'm going to invite Bill Marshall and Katie Mendoza to come on up here. Hey guys. Do you want to hold that for a minute? I'm going to go through the slides really quick.
Okay.
I'm so glad you're here. You guys are so on it. And Bill,
Thank
by the
you.
way, is a longtime Claremonter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Very poised. His mother, it's the Claremont Village Arts.
Yes.
Arts.
Yes.
And he's in most of the performances. You might catch him. He's a
Yes.
star. But we were invited to provide one of the workshops that LACMA, LA County Museum of Art, provides for the LA County district teachers. They invite the teachers to come to learn about the shows, take a workshop so they can go back to the classroom and say, hey kids, this is what is cool about the museum. So we actually taught the teachers more about the show. And Katie and Bill led one of the workshops. So we used their materials to design a lesson plan about one of the artists in one of those exhibitions. And then Katie, Bill, and their mentor worked on directing the materials and rehearsing it and figuring out what would be the objectives they would want people to walk away with. And of course, we want to set up a nice experimental place for any kind of learning. And also, it's very important to have objectives, right? For artists or the learners to walk away with, not just a feel-good experience, but literally say, I know a new word, or etc. And skills as well. So Bill and Katie ran 2 back-to-back workshops for about 70 people each, very successfully in one of the rooms there at LACMA. So exciting, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I wanted to have Bill and Katie here. This is Laura, who was their mentor. She's over there. Hey, Laura. Yay. She'll be available for questions later, too. I wanted to ask you guys a few questions, okay?
Okay.
So when you had this workshop, which was a big deal, right?
Yes.
It was about teaching. So can you tell me, Bill, a little bit about why you think it's important to teach art?
Yes. Why to teach art more important? Because art is experience. Art is history. Get it? Art history. Two. Yes. Art is really cool. It's actually using your mind and your heart. I really learned to be a teacher because it feels great. Like, I love it. I'm glad that I'm at First Street Gallery. They taught me being a teacher, but you know what? I'm here now.
That's great, Bill. Thank you. Hey, Katie, what does it take to set up and get ready to teach?
Well, the main point of it is preparation. You need to make sure that when you're making a workshop that you have to get everything just right for the lesson. You got to make sure you got to make posters enough. You got to make sure that the you got to make sure that the you you got to make sure that everything's perfect. Not only do you have to get the lesson done, you have to make sure how to execute it properly with the words, the program, the thing you got set up, everything.
That's great. Thank you, Katie. A lot of preparation, huh? Mm-hmm. So, Bill, you've been teaching a while. What are your goals as a teacher?
Being a goal as a teacher, that is to really connect to your students. Why? Because I want my students to learn about art like me, because I love art, and that's why I'm becoming a art teacher to taught LACMA. Why? Because my goal is kind of like this. Because I want to be a teacher, and I want to teach people art, teaching people to dance, because I was born an artist.
Thank you, Bill. That's cool. Hey, Katie, you know, art's about inspiration, right?
Yes.
So we've got a room full of people. What would you say to them today to help them feel inspired?
The sky's the limit. Luckily for you, art is very subjective, so that means anything and everything can be used as art. After all, it doesn't matter how you do it and how you do it. It matters is what makes you happy when you do it.
That's great, Katie. Thank you both so much. I want to hear it from both.
Thank you.
Is that a great lead-in to making sure you check in with us for our art workshops? We always have a new offering, and we're going to be offering more as they come up. But I've learned so much from these teachers and from the experiences of working with artists who are very dedicated to sharing the passion that they experience about their own making with others. And it's contagious. Actually, not a good word to use these days, right? It's it inspires you. So I want to thank you guys again. Another thing that's happened this year is we have started participating in more art fairs on another, we've just grown our level of the art world participation. So many of our artists were in the Designer Con at Anaheim Convention Center just last November. And they enjoyed having their work received and sold. This is Paige, who's our gallery director, and she has been putting these art fairs together for us. Evan and Tara enjoyed being there and being celebrities, people coming and really being in an amazing a forum of hundreds of other artists and high energy, really amazing. We've also participated in the Outsider Art Fair in New York for the last 3 years. The last year we represented as Tierra del Sol Gallery instead of First Street Gallery. but it's been a steady build. And the artists are just always well received, and they're being purchased by the top 10 world collectors now. It's amazing to me. My head's blowing open. I remember it was a few years into it. It was about 25 years ago. I said, one of my goals is that our artists find no barriers to the most extraordinary levels of acceptance and interaction that they can. And I know artists who have bigger careers than any other artist I've ever known. It's just amazing. Helen Ray is one of those people, and John Mall is another. You'll meet him in a minute. So I just wanted to say that the gallery now that operates in Chinatown is an extraordinary experience. It's right downtown, and we have openings. We'll have our 5th show opening soon. The first one was Evan Hines, and it was called Rebel Alliance. And he did a gallery talk, and it was a great crowd just like this, and he spoke about his different works. It was just beautiful. Hugo Rocha, our second show, had worked with us for many years as well. And that's Paige again, and Pete. Pete is our gallery manager. Paige is the gallery director down there. But we have not only the shows, but we're developing, like I said, panel discussions, workshops. There's a poetry reading on the 29th, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's things going on that are very exciting there. This is Hugo. I love this picture of Hugo. He's at his opening and he wants to go outside and read the book. But why wouldn't you? Look at how fun is that place. Chinatown is just enjoyable. So not only do you get a great art experience, it's just a great place to be. Mary Lou Dimsdale was our 3rd show, and she enjoyed her first solo LA show ever, and just great, well received. Michael Lavelle is the show coming up. He's been curated in many shows, including some by David Pagel, who is the professor at CGU, as well as the LA Times art critic that's been a good champion of ours for many, many years now, and has written extensively about Helen Ray, too. So this is John Mall. John Mall has worked with us maybe 13, 14 years, John. And I want to invite him up to come and meet you all. Come on up, John. He has his first solo show in LA. It's on. There you go. All right. Is that cool? Yeah. Great. So this is about you and your beautiful work. Your beautiful work, right? So now that you've seen it, let's turn this way. Yeah. And you've had so many group shows, and now you've had a solo show. Yeah. Did you enjoy that solo show in LA? Yeah. Great. And here's a picture of that. This is John. Yeah. It's Paige, the gallerist, and some family members, and of course the star. And it was just a beautiful show. I'm going to click through. That's John's family who showed up for the opening. How many artists here have family show up for an opening? It's like, oh yeah, that person that they call themselves an artist in our family. Yeah, oh, they had an opening. John, they celebrate you. Isn't that fabulous? I want to point out too, this is Maddie, one of our teachers at the Sunland Studios. Her mother is Allison Sarr. Allison Sarr's mother is Betty Sarr. You might have heard about that family, pretty intense. And Allison is such a fan of yours. Isn't that great? Yeah. So again, our folks are working at the levels that are beyond my understanding. It's such a joy. And John, did you enjoy your opening? Yeah. Were you surprised about how many people showed up? Yeah. It's cool. Did you know that since the opening, you've sold maybe 20 or more artworks already? Wow. Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah. Can I brag about you about something? So we went to OAF in New York, and John was one of our featured artists, and the LA Times came through, and they choose about 3 or 4 artists to go see as new artists, and they named John Mall as one of the artists to go see in the New York Times. Yeah. Congratulations. Yeah. That is giant for an artist's career. It's just giant. Oops. So I wanted to thank you for being with us and working so hard. Yeah. You're an artist, and just being an artist is what makes such a meaningful piece to the world. Yeah. Thank you for doing that. Yeah. Should we invite Lauren up to talk a little bit? Yeah. You want to invite her? This is Lauren Romero. Lauren Romero is our program director for the Upland Studios. That was my old job. And she is doing amazing things there. We also have the Sunland Studios that Mariah Jones directs. So we have 2 studios, 2 program directors, the gallery, and I kind of sit over all of it now. Not sit over. I don't know if I sit very much. So Lauren, you are so involved. You know that we're a nonprofit. You know that we're about human services. But you know, it's really about celebrating these amazing things that people can do and communities that get built. So Lauren, you work so much directly with our artists and their families. Can you speak to John and I a little bit about what you think has happened with John's family since all this?
Yes. So on a daily basis, I get to spend several hours a day around creative artists, watching them create and interact and speak about art. And I watch them set goals for personal goals for their careers or for their work. And then there's opportunities like this behind us where we get to invite family. I see it every day, but it's a whole other experience for family and friends to come and see work framed and hung in a show in LA. And so for John's family, it had been a while since they had really seen what he was up to and the type of work he had been doing. And so just the invitation alone to come and see a show in LA for their brother was a huge surprise. They said, I can't believe it. He's going to have a solo show in LA. It's just so excited. They did everything they could to get the family to come out and friends. I mean, it was a huge turnout. And at the end of the evening, I got to celebrate with them and talk about just hearing all these visitors appreciate this work that he's been doing. And his brother, John's brother, before he left the show, he said, I've always known that he was an artist, but for him to be in the art world in Los Angeles and hear people talking about my brother's work, he's bringing experience to our family that we would never have had if it wasn't for his creativity. And so it's those moments when you get to see the magic and the aha and just watch all this hard work be celebrated. So I think that's what it's about. It's pictures like this, big turnouts, and all these opportunities that our artists, are participating in, and it's really just an even playing field of talent, and so that's what that is, and happy to be a part of that.
Thank you, Laura. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, John. Congratulations. That's great. I can't tell you how many times I've had that conversation with the family. I had no idea that they could achieve this, or wow, this is beyond what I understood could happen. It's mind-boggling that we live in societies where we just pick up certain practices just to live next to a bunch of people all the time, right? There's certain things we get used to doing and we don't even think about it sometimes. So some of the preconceived lower standards are just imbibed in us. So sometimes when we see it go beyond that, it's like, well, of course, John's an artist. He's fabulous. He's worked for 13 years on his art. And it's amazing that this is happening. So I just encourage us to really open the door and think about this. And it brings to my mind the history of Tierra del Sol in 1971, when those 8 families said, no, you are not taking my son or daughter and putting them in an institution where I will barely ever see them again. It's just amazing what changes by some people just making certain steps happen. And the thing is, we live in a world that's very different than that. In my 30 years, I've seen enormous change happen. In the first 10 years of my career, it was like, oh my gosh, we were like health and safety. Let's just make sure people don't die. It's just like crazy things going on all the time. And because of the situations people were put in, not because of the people, but the places they were put in. So now that has started to change in a big way, and I'm very grateful for that as a world movement. But again, I love that we now have people actualizing their hopes and dreams and goals. And one of the women that's really a great example of that is Helen Ray. And some of you know Helen because she grew up in Claremont, and her mom was part of the Rembrandt Club, I believe, years ago. Her father was a professor at Harvey Mudd. So she grew up on 11th Street. And I met Helen just after she joined the program. I joined the program very early on as a guest artist and stayed as a teacher. She came walking in just a couple days later, and her mom said, I don't know, she does a little needlepoint, she likes kits, but she's never done any kind of art. And she's 50 years old at that time. So it was an exploration for her to learn and see how art materials work and the permission that is given. The artists that join us aren't necessarily learning skills from us. They're learning to trust that this is a place where you can open up and explore in a studio situation. And Helen was that. Anything we put in front of her, it was like, oh, I'll draw that. Done. You know, oh, I'll paint that. Oh, I'll sculpt that. She could just, she just jumped right on it. The change that happened was her taking on, this is my art. This is my self-expression. This is a way for me to really make work out in the world. And she has made a big splash in the world. Those magazines that I was had there, so those are major art magazines that she's had cover stories for and features and written about by major art people. I mean, if you're going to make a career, you got to have an art writer. You got to have this whole machine behind you. And what's been beautiful is Helen has just been Helen, and it's come to her because she's such an amazing artist. So many of you know Helen already, and you know what this means. This is what this is about. Helen is someone who, again, has just made her own career happen. And these are some stories. This is Jerry Saltz from New York Magazine, who's a big fan. He came to her first solo show in New York, and he just, really promoted her. This is Helen at her opening. The woman on the far right is Valerie Rousseau, head curator for the American Folk Art Museum in New York, and she is an avid fan and collector. Her husband is Andrew Edlin of the Andrew Edlin Gallery in New York, who is also an avid collector. The gallerists are collecting Helen, and the echelon of who these collectors are is that untouchable top 10 that I never even knew their names until Helen came along. These people own museums. They collect for their own museums. So again, she's just definitely an example of someone who worked very long and hard for 31 years. She joined us at 50. She's 81 now, and she's hitting the big time in a big way. So it's nice that she was discovered, right? Just recently. I just want to say the Vanguard show at the museum is fabulous, and it's just right down the street. It's a good way to refresh on who we are and what we do. You're certainly welcome to come to Upland and visit us as well anytime and check in on the workshops that we offer. But it's all about how we can pursue our own creativity. I think that all of us have that wonderful gift of self-expression in a very unique way. And each of us has to find a way to unveil it to ourselves. And that's a lifelong pursuit. So I challenge you to nurture and open up on your creative levels, as well as join in with your creative community. And you can come hang out with us anytime. Our families have been impacted, as Lauren said. Our communities are changing. Art world is changing. This era right now, if any of you own some of the artist's works, hold on to it. The era right now is changing like you wouldn't believe as far as what's called outsider, self-taught, and visionary work. It may not last forever. The art world is fickle, but I would say for the next 10 years, it's going to be a wild ride. So hold on to those investments if that's why you bought it. I'm sure you bought it because you loved it, right? So again, I welcome you to come and visit us, and I encourage you to be an artist. And I want you to think of all the questions you want to ask us. So I'm going to ask everybody to come up here that just spoke, including Laura. And I just want you to know that the ingredients that have made us successful is we're just a bunch of artists making art. It's not about anything else. We're not doing special things or watering things down or changing this. We're just trying to be a creative community. So I wanted to thank again Laura Wild, Laura Romero, John Mall, Katie Mendoza, Bill Marshall, and I open this up for any questions you might have for us.
Are you using material or media that you wouldn't normally see in a regular art gallery?
You want to address that, Laura? Okay. I will say unusual only in the sense that we go archival and high quality. We're not using, I might not make any friends by saying this, but I am anti-glitter. In the sense of it gets everywhere that you don't want it, you know. So in a community studio, it's hard to have glitter around, and we are very concerned about the quality of sustainability and fadeability and the quality of materials. Now, yes, the art world has artists who use Post-its and materials that, you know, fall apart and fade and you know, just decay over time. Absolutely. Those are artists that are making very specifically cognitive choices about that as a self-expression. Many of our artists haven't used enough materials to have a good choice on that yet. For example, it's like I want everyone to know what the tools are that are available to say, like, oh, I didn't know it was going to fade, you know? So we're using paint. We basically work with the basics of ceramics, painting, water-based paint materials. We just don't have oil available in the studios because of space. We're not doing welding. You know, if we had larger studios, we could do all of that, but we're working more in a non-toxic and basic material, markers, watercolors, acrylic paints, ceramics, collage, all of that, but with high archival qualities to the materials. Great question.
I could say too that with ceramics, they do, it may be a traditional medium, but they also use it in a very different ways, and they'll stretch the limits of what should be possible. So they'll take things apart and break them apart and put them back together, and they'll do different things, and they've used glazes in different ways also. And you know, there's steps in correct ways, but some of my guys, they'll just start going. And John Mall, for instance, has developed some beautiful work with he uses underglaze and glaze together, and he layers it thick, and his use of color. So they do use them in different ways.
I think that when you have a limitation of materials, more of the individual creativity comes out sometimes, because you don't get, it's not like I'm going to use whatever that thing does, as opposed to I'm really going to build into it what I want to have happen. So I love that you said that, pushing the materials, right?
Yes.
Any questions? Yes.
I'd like to ask the artists how often you go to the studios and how often you work. How long do you stay when you go?
As an example, like me, I come in around 9:30 to 3:30. Tuesdays through Saturdays, because I want to be there. I want to make art. Yes, I was there, I would say, like 3 years in First Street Gallery. And that question is really cool, because I'm really glad that you said that, because I am an artist. I'm glad that I'm at First Street, and my name is Bill Marshall.
Can you give that to Katie now? Self-promotion?
For my schedule, I go there from Tuesdays to Saturdays, 9 to 3 for Tuesday to Friday, and 10 to 2:30 for Saturdays. There's also times where every Thursday we go on all 5 days. It's enjoyable because when we go out to see the world, we also get inspired for our art there. Sometimes you can actually see inspiration in our artworks there sometimes, whether it's seeing something new in the gallery or seeing out there the places we go there. It's actually pretty enjoyable that way.
Good. Tuesday to Friday. Tuesday to Friday every day. Yeah.
And we don't have a problem with attendance typically.
Okay,
People want to be with their art making. That's a great question. Another question? Okay, I want to thank you so much for having us. And again, Laura Wild, Lauren Romero, John Mall, Katie Mendoza, and Bill Marshall. Thank you.
Thank you.